Sponsored by Black Magic Design, the world's highest quality products for the feature film, post and broadcast industries. blackmagicdesign.com.
This film is Democracy Noir, directed by Connie Field, and basically it concerns three women in Hungary. One of them is Timea Szabo, who is a member of the parliament. Then you have Babette, who is one of the few remaining independent journalists in Hungary. And then you have a nurse who grew up on a farm. Her name's Nico. So these are three women of varying levels of education, blue collar to white collar to government. And the film is basically about their opposition to self-proclaimed dictator Viktor Orban. You've probably heard his name a lot in the news, especially the former president's affections for him. While Orban was first elected in 2010 as prime minister as something of a populist change candidate, sound familiar? He soon revealed himself to be horribly corrupt. He has basically tried to remake the entire country in his image. The voting districts are gerrymandered all to hell. He declared basically by fiat that Hungary was now a Christian nation, even though less than 40% of the population is even religious, much less identifying as Christian. He has funneled European Union funds to his cronies and his family. He has become personally quite wealthy off of his position in power for the last 12 years, 14 actually, to the point where his humble country manor now has a giant soccer stadium right next to it. The film is really about, again, the resistance. How do these women of different ages and different walks find their own way to oppose and maintain a truly democratic society in their homeland, especially because Orban gets it from all sides. I mean, he is not well liked. The European Union hates him. And yet he keeps winning in landslides. Part of that is because of the gerrymandering he's done to the parliament. Part of it is because he tried to rewrite the Constitution to basically give himself all the power. His most recent re-election in 2022, there were observers from international bodies to basically say, is this a free and fair election? And the answer is no. This is a man who basically bought out almost all of the independent media and turned it into state TV to the point where they even show you three separate networks that are reading the same copy as far as their propaganda pieces. So you see Timea Szoba's her work within Parliament to try to at least keep some guardrails in place. You see Babette, who again is an independent journalist, not only deal with the barrage of propaganda and bull coming at her, but also try to maintain her family, and because she's a lesbian, and right now her family is not legally recognized. And then you have Nico, who is an artist and a farmer and a nurse, and she highlights the problems with the healthcare system where essentially, if you go to a public hospital in Hungary, because they do have, national healthcare like every civilized country but ours, if you go to a public hospital, you essentially have to sign NDAs and agree to surveillance. So at least if you work in those hospitals, sometimes even if you're a patient. So there are people who essentially opt out for private insurance because they want, God forbid, some security and privacy. So we see Nico's journey basically trying to juggle the reality of what her country has become as she's come of age, but also deal with the previous generation. There's a lot of conversation she has with her mother, who sadly passed away earlier this year, where the mother demonstrates the kind of problem with populism and any kind of authoritarian government. All she cares about is if there's food on the table. She doesn't care about things like redistricting, tax code, civil rights, can she get bread and milk and eggs from the grocery store? So sure, Viktor Orban is demonizing Syrian refugees and, you know, parroting Nazi language about immigrants, but doesn't bother her. She lives out in the country and she can feed her family. That's all that matters to her. So he's doing a good job. And it's dispiriting because the last election, which again observers basically declared was not free and fair, Orban's party got less than 50% of the parliamentary vote, and yet they now make up 2/3 of the parliament because that's how rigged the game is. The film itself, basically from a political angle, is about all these opposition parties coming together to form a united front because essentially, to put it in more of American terms, Orban is the Republican Party, the Democratic Party doesn't exist, and all these other minor parties are the independents, the Greens, the Libertarians, and they all make up a majority of the Hungarian population if they come together. And the question is it too late to do so once Orban seized all the controls of power, all the levers of power? Timmy, I mean, she's in a very safe district in Budapest for her parliamentary seat, and yet at the last election, they put out a huge smear campaign against her, accusing her, using the media to accuse her of smuggling drugs and working as a prostitute and all these other things to get her out of office. Thankfully, it didn't work, but it was the closest of victory of her career. Like, they got within 10 points, which shouldn't have even been possible given where she lives. So it kind of serves as a microcosm for all the world politics where democracy is kind of backsliding into authoritarianism. We saw it with Brexit. We see it in our country, with the MAGA movement. We saw it in Argentina. We saw it in Brazil. Like, for some reason, 90 years after World War II, this kind of fascism is back on the rise. So again, just like with Zorowski v. Texas that we discussed on the previous episode, this is a film about showing it from the people who are actually affected by it rather than it just being a lecture or an educational tool. And I think that's the key here. Is like when you make these very heavy themes reduced down to the actual human element of people who are being damaged, victimized, or just any adverse effect from it, that makes it feel more real and makes it more of a call to action.
This is the BTRP Media Network.